Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to walk through a really powerful medical case. It's the story of a pediatric patient's journey, and it tells us so much about how we manage chronic inflammatory diseases today.
So, our story kicks off back in July of 2021. We've got a teenager whose life is suddenly and completely interrupted by some really severe and, frankly, alarming symptoms.
So, picture this. You're a teen, and you're suddenly dealing with intense abdominal pain, seeing blood in your stool, and you're losing weight. I mean, these are classic red flags for inflammatory bowel disease, and they immediately led to a hospitalization and a really urgent search for answers. And after a whole battery of tests, in October 2021, the doctors had their diagnosis. It was Crohn's disease. This is a tough one. It's a lifelong condition where essentially your own immune system gets confused and ends up in a constant battle with itself, attacking your digestive tract.
All right, so let's get into the numbers, because this is where it gets real. There's a key protein we look for that indicates inflammation. It's called calprotectin. Now, a normal, healthy value should be less than 50. This patient's initial level, over 5,000. That number is practically screaming that something is going terribly, terribly wrong inside.
And it wasn't just that one number. We also look at something called the Pediatric Crohn's Disease Activity Index, or PCDAI. Their score was 35. Now, from a pediatric gastroenterologist perspective, any score over 30 sets off major alarm bells. It tells us we're looking at severe disease activity. This confirmed the patient was right in the middle of a massive inflammatory flare-up, and that affects everything, not just their gut, but their growth and their overall development too.
Okay, so with that kind of fire raging inside, what's the first move? You bring in the big guns. The first line of defense was corticosteroids. The immediate goal was simple: get that massive inflammation under control, and do it fast.
And this table here, it really tells the story of what we call the steroid roller coaster. You can see the steroids worked like magic. At first, by early 2022, that disease activity score plummeted to 2.5, which is considered inactive disease. The inflammation marker also dropped way down. But here's the thing. It was a temporary fix. By the middle of the year, the disease came roaring back, and you can see both of those markers started climbing right back up.
And this is the problem with that approach. That treatment came with a really heavy price, especially for a teenager who's still growing. They developed some pretty significant side effects. Medication-induced high blood pressure, high cholesterol, that characteristic moon face appearance, and even cataracts in one eye. It was crystal clear this was not a sustainable long-term solution.
So the disease is relapsing, and the side effects are just piling up. The medical team knew they had to pivot. They needed a smarter, more targeted, long-term strategy. And this is what led to a major turning point in the patient's treatment. The decision was made to switch from the shotgun approach of steroids to what you could call a smart drug. This meant moving to a biologic therapy called Infliximab. So instead of suppressing the entire immune system, Infliximab acts like a sniper. It precisely targets and neutralizes one specific molecule called TNF-alpha, which is a major driver of the inflammation in Crohn's disease.
And this date, September 13, 2022, it marks that crucial turning point. It's the moment they shifted to a much more targeted, modern way of managing this lifelong illness.
So, they made the switch to this new targeted therapy. The big question is, what happened next? Well, the results were, honestly, they were transformative. And I'm not just talking about the lab values, I'm talking about the patient's actual quality of life. And this chart just illustrates that change so perfectly. The PCDAI score, that clinical activity measure, it plummeted from 25 all the way down to 5 in a single month after starting Infliximab. And by April 2024, it hit 0. That means full clinical remission. The patient was feeling better.
And the inflammation marker, calprotectin, it just mirrored that success. It fell from over 400 to less than 5, which is basically undetectable. Medically speaking, this is a huge sign of what we call mucosal healing. It means the actual lining of the gut was finally healing itself.
But honestly, this is what really matters. All that clinical success translated into real-life recovery. Before, weight loss was a huge symptom. Now, the patients stopped losing weight, their nutritional status stabilized, and they started to grow again, reaching and then maintaining a healthy weight. For any pediatric patient, this is one of the absolute most critical goals of care. You know, achieving remission like that, it's a massive victory. But managing a chronic disease is never really over. It's an ongoing journey, and it always has its own set of challenges.
And this is one of the key questions with long-term biologic therapy.
Because these drugs are complex proteins, the patient's own immune system can sometimes recognize the drug as something foreign, and then it starts to create antibodies against it, basically trying to neutralize its effect.
And in June of 2024, that's exactly what routine monitoring showed. The level of Infliximab in the patient's system was nearly gone, even with regular infusions. And the reason was clear. The body had developed a high level of antibodies against the drug, and those antibodies were clearing it out before it could even do its job.
But, and this is the crucial point, this was caught early through routine monitoring, before symptoms came back. This allowed the medical team to be proactive. They were able to get ahead of the problem by increasing the patient's Infliximab dose, which is a standard strategy to try and overcome those antibodies and keep the drug level in a therapeutic range.
And this case just perfectly highlights the modern approach to chronic illness. It's not about waiting for a crisis to happen. It's all about being proactive, using continuous monitoring, and allowing doctors to adapt the treatment strategy to keep the patient well, and just living a normal life.
So this patient's story is one of incredible progress, from a severe, debilitating flare-up to a sustained remission. It's a huge testament to the power of targeted therapy, but it also leaves us with this powerful question about the ongoing chess match between our treatments and the body's own ability to adapt. For this patient, and for so many others, winning that match means the chance at a long, healthy life. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.